All right. Hi, everybody. Before I introduce our special guest today, I just want to shout out and acknowledge and thank two women in the back there. We have Aubrey and Lena from the Charwell House Skilled Nursing and Rehab Center in Norwood. Konditormeister, really, thank you. Thank you so much. I see a lot of smiles in the crowd here. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to introduce Mike Fradkin. And yes, he's related. He's my husband. So we go way back. Thank you. Oh, wow. Wow. And so a few months ago, he was kind of just chatting about technology as he often does. And he was showing me some ChatGPT and getting very excited about it. And I said, that's so interesting. I think our seniors might be interested in that. I think I was right. This room, this is the biggest crowd we've ever had for coffee and conversation. And I asked if he'd be willing to come. And I don't know if he believed me that I would actually put him up to it. But here he is today. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Thank you.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Great, fantastic. It was quite a round of applause you gave me for being Debbie's husband. It's really not that hard. Not that hard. So appreciate you guys coming out today, spending some time with me. I'm excited to talk about this. Debbie was telling you sort of the genesis of how I came here. The other part of that story is I think when she said this to me, ChatGPT, how many people have heard of ChatGPT? Okay, so good many of you. And how many people have heard of artificial intelligence? I imagine that's probably the whole room. Okay. So that it had just sort of come out. I had just started using it in my job. And what's crazy, I said to her, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I was like, I really have to do a lot of research and learn a lot more because it's moving so fast. Like in fact, in the time that she asked me to do this, and today, ChatGPT came out with a new version of their program. So it's moving really quickly. So let's just talk about general agenda today. I'm just going to try to give you the basics, right? I am not an artificial intelligence expert. I am someone that has done a decent amount of research on it. I use it in my job daily. And so I'm going to try to stay at that level, give you some basics, some terms, tell you the difference between, robots, machine learning, artificial intelligence. These are things that maybe you've heard, maybe you've read about them in articles, seen them on TV. So we'll cover some of that stuff. We're going to talk about what I'm going to often say is this two-sided coin of artificial intelligence. There's both excitement and wonderful things about it. There's also fear and risk about it. So we'll talk about that and what some of the experts are saying. And then I am going to pull up ChatGPT and how to get into it. So what my goal is that if you guys want to go home to your computers or your phones, it works on both, that you'd be able to set up your own account today. It's free. You can start using it. There's a lot of useful things you can do with it. So we'll demo that, and I'll show you sort of the power of that. And then we'll do some Q&A if there are questions that come up. I'll try to pause a couple times during the presentation to ask questions, but if there are things at the end that we haven't covered, then I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. All right, so again, who's this guy? So Debbie's husband, you guys caught the last name. I'm smart enough to know when I'm asked a favor to say yes, or at least to choose my moments on when to say no. So she asked me to do this, and I thought it was a great opportunity for me to come share the information that I had gathered, as well as force myself to really gain a lot of extra knowledge on this topic. I've been a technology employee for 30 years, and of those 30 years, 15 of them have been in product marketing for technology companies. And that is relevant to me because I am in a line of work where 9 months ago, I felt pretty invulnerable. I had, all sorts of job offers and it moved around a little bit. And marketing, when you're doing product marketing and you're writing and you understand a product's differentiators and how to position it in the market, it was a very highly sought after thing. And all of a sudden, ChatGPT comes along and there's a lot of stuff that it does, which I'll show you later. So relevant that I'm a marketer because I'm one of these people, it's like, geez, is my job going to be around now for the next 10 years? And there's a lot of folks that feel that way. Debbie and I are parents of two, 19 and 23, which is their ages, not their names, but they are young adults, and they're about to enter a world that is unlike the world that we have. So Some people were around before the internet, some people were around before cell phones, some people were around before TVs, some people were around before fire and electricity. We all have different experiences, especially when something monumental comes along. And artificial intelligence is considered to be one of those monumental things. Their life is going to be vastly different than mine. So I am starting to bone up on this to understand that for them. I sat down with my oldest son. We built his resume largely using ChatGPT recently. And I taught him how to use it in that exercise because I thought it was pretty important. And as I mentioned, I'm excited and worried about AI. And we'll cover both the sides of that coin today. All right, so let's talk about terms and basics. Artificial intelligence, and I'm just going to give you this sort of definition, a subfield of computer science that focuses on creating systems capable of learning, reasoning, problem solving, perceiving, and understanding language. It's pretty much as it's named, right? They're trying to emulate the missing part of what robots, or there's robots out there, right? We go to an ATM machine, that's a robot. It's doing something that a person used to do. It's focused on a specific function, but it doesn't have intelligence. It doesn't have personality. If you walk into the ATM machine and you fall on your face, it's not going to help you up. It's not going to feel bad for you. It's not going to call anyone for help. So AI is really trying to mimic, intelligence, reasoning, the large decision tree that we go through when we do things, when we drive, when we interact with people. So that's AI. It falls into generally two categories. You have narrow AI, or what's sometimes referred to as weak AI. I'm sorry if I'm using AI, artificial intelligence, I'll call it AI. Narrow AI is aimed at solving specific problems. So examples of that might be facial recognition software. How many of you guys have phones that have Siri on it, have iPhones, right? So that's an example of sort of this narrow AI. I mean, what Siri's really doing is it has some data, it's going out, it's finding, it's doing some searches for you. A lot of times you ask Siri a question and it has the data ready. You might ask it for the weather. And sometimes you ask it and it says, this is what I found on the web on this topic. Other examples of that are, fraud detection algorithms and chatbots. Do you guys know what chatbots are? And when so what chatbots are, maybe you've had this, maybe you know what it is, you just didn't know what it was called. You might be online, you might be shopping, you might be doing some research, you're on a website, and somewhere in the middle of that experience, something pops up from the bottom and says, can I help you today, or what are you looking for? And chatbots are more and more common on websites, at least in digital experiences now. I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so same online, and I will tell you, so in a lot of cases, these chatbots, they seem like they're human interactions. They go, hey, how can I help you? Well, I want to change my service for Verizon today. Oh, what are you looking to change? Let me look up your account. And you're having this interaction that sometimes is 100% artificial intelligence. Or maybe it's only 75% artificial intelligence. Maybe it collects enough information from you to understand your problem and where you need to be triaged and moved to before it hands you off to a human. So that's what chatbots are. If you haven't seen them, you're probably going to. Oh, there's one right there. How do you like the presentation so far? It stinks. So that's the chatbot experience right there. And then the other category that AI generally falls into is this general AI, and that's the one that we're sort of knocking on the door of right now. It exists in some forms, but it is really trying to emulate cognitive abilities of humans. When you think about all the most complex things we do naturally in our brains, the big complex decision trees that we go through, as I said, as we interact, as we do complex tasks, that's really what they're programming these computers to do. And at speeds and efficiencies that are, unfortunately, greater than ours in a lot of cases. So how are they using them? They're using them, so if you actually think about that, what's it going to be? It's going to be an artificial intelligent doctor. Which right now is really more doctor's assistants or researchers, right? So if you have computers where you said, all right, we're just going to feed all the data we've had for the past 20 years into this computer and let it just 24/7 crunch that data, correlate it, come up with, conclusions, cures, whatever the case is, that's emulating researchers, but it's just doing it quicker and at greater capacity and while we sleep. Other examples are AI artists. So this is one of those real controversial ones. I was talking to someone just before this program. This was one of the fascinating and scary things I heard. How many of you guys know the artist Georgia O'Keeffe? Heard of Georgia O'Keeffe? So they took all the Georgia O'Keeffe paintings, they fed it into the computer, and they said, okay, computer, now create us a Georgia O'Keeffe. And it apparently did a pretty good job. It just studied all the markings of all of the paintings and said, all right, now I'm going to create original works that look very much like everything that had already been created. And so you extrapolate that to music. What if I were to take, the 10 biggest country hits of last year and say, all right, here you go, computer, listen to this music, study it, which it does really quickly. It's gonna, it's gonna catalog all the markings of these hit songs and start producing potentially hit songs that weren't written by humans, that weren't recorded by humans. And so when it comes to creation, art, music, writing, any of that type of stuff, that's a big two-sided coin. You can do things quickly. You can, if you're just into selling a hit song, then maybe you'll get that hit song. There are some people that would argue that art doesn't exist without a human element to it, and so we hope that that's the case. But these computers are capable of doing some of the things I just talked about. So kind of scary, kind of fascinating. AI companionship. So AI companions. You'll laugh. Except, if I extrapolate this and talk about what it might be like, either people who need people in the home to help them out, or maybe it is just companionship, or maybe it's, you're blind and you need help being helped across the street or around town, whatever the case is. And so, I don't know if you guys are aware, but in the field of home health aides, it's really hard to find qualified people that stick around and that are effective. And so if you actually could create something like this where they were effective and stuck around, there might be some benefits to AI companionship, if not just for the company it keeps, but for the things it can do for people.
What's the percentage of accuracy for the medical?
I'm not sure. I don't have those statistics, so I'm not. I'm not sure what that. I know right now, as you heard in the video, that they're not, and I don't think they really ever should. They're not really in a place where they want to just make that autonomous, where all right, you just decide and treat and cure. I think they still want humans to take the advice and use AI as an assistant. I am going to talk about a specific study in a minute that was a breast cancer study and how artificial intelligence actually increased the accuracy of diagnoses in that study. I'm sure it's something they're still studying and researching. And the technology is advancing. So what exists today for plus or minus accuracy may not be what exists 6 months from now, 12 months from now. What do you guys think of that video? Would you want to spend any time with that robot? Seemed interesting enough to me. All right, so that's artificial intelligence. Let's talk about some other terms here. We'll talk about machine learning. Has anyone heard about has heard the term machine learning? Okay, so machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, but it really focuses on learning from its experience with data. And there's a couple different, there's actually several different machine learning categories. I'm just going to cover a couple here that may have some real life applicability to people in the room. Supervised learning, so that's learning from sort of labeled data, things that are labeled, more structured. So an example of that might be, and sometimes has anyone heard of the term algorithms? Yeah. Algorithms, yeah. So product recommendations is an example of the supervised learning, machine learning. So the machine is learning from buyer behavior online. It sort of knows, all right, the computer's coming from this part of the country. We know who this person is. They've given us some information. We know they're a certain age. We know they shop for certain things. You come online, you start to shop for other things, and it starts to learn, the machine starts to learn a little bit about you to where it does what a store associate would do, which is, oh, I noticed you bought this red purse. Let me show you these matching red shoes and this necklace that would go along with it. And so if any of you who shop on Amazon probably have seen this plenty of times. You buy something and then along the bottom it's other people who bought this like this, or you might also like that. That's an example of supervised learning, machine learning. Another one is unsupervised learning, which is similar, but it's really more detecting patterns. So it's not really studying specific data. It's just kind of paying attention. And an example of that might be customer segmentation. So let's say a machine is just paying attention to shopper behavior in general online, and it just starts to notice that I've seen a lot of males over the age of 50 are looking for water from Florida. you know, and it doesn't really know why just yet, but it's going to create a segment. Maybe it's just going to call it segment A, or maybe it's going to call it males over 50 who are looking for water in Florida. But it starts to categorize and group because it's starting to learn behaviors enough to be able to start, you know, separating things out that is loose data into various categories. Reinforcement learning, so that learns to achieve a goal within a specific environment. So robotics, which we'll talk about in a minute, game playing. Some of you may remember several years ago they taught a computer how to play chess. At the beginning, it didn't really play chess so well, and then in short time, it was able to, I think, beat the best grandmaster in the world. And so that's in a specific environment, right? So this is, you know, we're saying our machine learn within the context of a chessboard and the chess game with the goal of winning. And then there's many others, and I really don't have a lot of information on some of these others, and there's probably too much, you know, would take too much time to get into these, but there are some other versions of machine learning. So artificial intelligence, sort of the broad spectrum. Machine learning is a part of that really deals with machines that learn from specific data. We talked about robots. We just saw an example of one. So robots are machines that are designed to execute tasks. They may or may not have artificial intelligence capabilities. All right, so what do I mean by that? So examples that are robots, right? You guys know what the Roomba is, the Roomba vacuum cleaner? We don't have one. I don't know if any of you have one, but some people do. The Roomba, you know, it has some learning. It starts to learn the layout of your room and vacuums your room. Self-checkout, you go to the market, you probably noticed far less tellers now. It's a form of robot. It's doing a specific thing. It's doing it arguably quicker, maybe cheaper, maybe more efficiently. I know people have opinions on that. I'm not going to get into it. I mentioned ATMs, automatic teller machines. That was something that right back in the day was all human beings. Now, so it's a form of robot. Some of the ones that are coming along lately that you've heard of, delivery drones. So this is something that Amazon has been experimenting with. So rather than having Amazon drivers, just something comes out of the sky, delivers your package, flies away. Auto mowers, robotic hands. So not just something that goes on and kind of does this over and over again, but if it has artificial intelligence built into it, it starts to learn how to do the things that you need it to do, how to work with your arm, how to work with your other hand. So robotic limbs are something that I would expect to see, you know, artificial intelligence embedded into so that they operate more like a hand that's connected to our brain, because that's what my hand's connected to my brain right now, you know. But if it's not connected, it only does this without any sort of you know, meaning. Self-driving cars. You guys seen any of the videos on self-driving cars? This is not a technology that's quite come into its own yet. They're tweaking it. The articles you see are probably the ones where it crashed into something, but it's gonna happen, and I'm excited for it because I think if you're too young to drive, if you're blind, if you're drunk, if you don't see well at night, but you like the privacy and comfort of your car, it would be nice to be able to get in your car and have it take you to exactly where you want to go safely, efficiently. And I'm just gonna wager a bet that when they perfect this technology, there'll be, you know, less accidents, there'll be less traffic because they'll be able to travel closer together safely. I mean, who knows? It's in the future, but not too far off. And so ChatGPT. Let's talk about what ChatGPT is. I saw a lot of hands for people that had heard about it. ChatGPT is a form of artificial intelligence. It came out roughly 9 months ago. And now it's something that I mentioned I use like daily in my job, and I think a lot of people do. It's a conversational, what's called generative AI, which means it's creating new content. In this case, it started out by creating a lot of text responses, but now the new version has what's called plugins that allow it to create spreadsheets and graphs and other things, and to also do a lot more, like read and summarize web pages, and other than just, you know, working on the data that they had fed it. It now can do a lot of forward-thinking things. So it's a conversational generative AI agent that's designed to generate human-like responses to text queries, and we will demo that in a little while. Example of ChatGPT is that it created the description of this session when I asked it to. When Debbie asked me to create a description of this session today, I said, ChatGPT, this is what I'm doing. Give me a description for this newsletter. And that's what it gave me, what you saw in your newsletter. And that's really just the smallest thing it can do. All right, so let's talk about let's stop here for a second. Quick questions before we get into the excitement and the fear of AI.
So it's probably do you tell your 19-year-old son, like, don't do any more homework, just let ChatGPT write the papers for me?
Well, of course I don't. I'm paying a lot for his education. No, I don't. But there's a balance there. And the great example is, I don't know how many years ago, let's say it was 30, 40 years. 40 years ago, if I was working for a boss and that boss said, hey, go research this company, come back, tell me what you found out. Well, how would I do it? I would go to the library, I'd pull the thesaurus or some other things, I'd read magazines, I'd spend the whole day in the library researching this company and I'd come back. But now, if my boss tells me to do that, he expects me, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to research it, I'm going to be online, and it's going to take an hour. And so there's going to become an increasing expectation that people use tools like ChatGPT the same way people expect you to use Google. And I was around when Google didn't exist, and I was around when they invented it. And you guys are around for when ChatGPT didn't exist.
There are limits, or you can use it unlimitedly.
You can. I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. It gets you a good part of the way. The way I use it sometimes at work is I'll be writing a piece of content, and I'll say I need a list of why these types of tools are important. I'll go ask ChatGPT, give me a bulleted list of why these tools are important. Brrr, happens. I will touch that up. I'll move some stuff around, but it has saved me at that point, 45 minutes of scratching my head and Google searching and thinking about it and looking at other people's websites and coming back to it and iterating. So it helps. But look, I mean, you don't want it to replace your own learning about things. So, question over here.
I was just going to say, in regards to that, my brother's in college right now, and he has dyslexia. So I showed him ChatGPT, and I said, just use this to help you edit your papers, because professors can use this other website to see if you wrote the paper and then AI wrote the paper.
Right. So she had said her brother has dyslexia. She said use ChatGPT to help edit your papers, and because these tools are starting to come up too, right? Professors are starting to have tools that will be able to identify, did ChatGPT write this term paper or did you write this term paper? So yeah, thanks for that. Any other questions before we move on here? One in the back.
I'm curious about what it can learn. For instance, if you're running a grinder, grinding mill rolls, you have to get a certain finish and all that sort of thing. Running that grinder isn't really a science.
Mm-hmm.
When the person has the controls and they make the that's experimenting with AI to run the machine.
So I'm going to summarize what I think you're asking. So the question is, are there people that are experimenting with AI to run machines, especially machines where some of that craftsmanship is more of an art than a science? Is that a fair summary? I don't know for sure, but I'm also sure that they are. I think that one of the things that AI is great at is again learning. It's so what it certainly could do is just study the making of those things and say, it's picking up on data. What was done well, what's not done well, what's done most often. Things of that nature. That is sort of a machine learning use case, or maybe just an artificial intelligence in general use case. I'm not sure if that's the one that I've heard the most about. I don't think that's where they're injecting it the most. I don't think emulating art and craft by artificial intelligence is one of those things that I think is, they challenge it to see what it can do, but it's not really the biggest benefit to civilization. So I don't think people are putting a whole lot of money behind that. I think, I'm seeing a whole lot more emphasis on, self-driving cars and medicine and things of that nature. So, question over here?
Facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
We have, for example, citizens, and I have facial recognition.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think what facial recognition is really focused on. I think it's what we want it to be focused on, which is identifying terrorists in an airport versus you.
talking about people that scam. Do they do that with this?
I suppose if artificial intelligence got into the wrong hands, potentially, and I think we'll get into that in a minute in the sort of excitement fear part of it. So fear concern. So I'm just gonna. I broke this section into two parts. So I'm gonna heck out of you. I apologize. Things breaking up on me a little bit. I'm going to steer the heck out of you, and I apologize, but we're also going to talk about the fear concern, and then we'll talk about the optimism and the excitement parts. So just a couple quotes from some people that are sort of expert in the field. Competitive pressures among corporations and militaries will give rise to AI agents that automate human roles, deceive others, and gain power. If such agents have intelligence that exceeds that of humans, this could lead to humanity losing control of its future. So this is Dan Hendricks. He's the director of the Center for AI Safety. It's kind of scary. So here's Stephen Hawking. We know Stephen Hawking. He passed away several years ago. Late in his life was sort of involved in weighing in on artificial intelligence and its impact on civilization. And he's sort of middle of the road about it in this quote. Success in creating effective AI could be the biggest event in history of our civilization or the worst. We just don't know. We cannot know if we'll be infinitely helped by AI or ignored by it, sidelined, and destroyed by it. And a pretty smart guy. I think a lot of people believed a lot of what he said. Here's Elon Musk, who's just one of many, along with the Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, one of 1,000 sort of technical and political leaders that recently signed this open letter to AI labs, urging them to immediately pause production of AI models that are more powerful than GPT-4 for at least 6 months. So what you have here is the people that are closest to artificial intelligence have seen its great power, and it's also made them say, whoa, we need to understand, we need to make sure this is going to be only positive. We need to sort of step back and regulate it. And you don't often see rich guys like Elon Musk that have a lot to gain from artificial intelligence being the people that are saying, whoa, we need to stop. Usually they want to be first to market with it and differentiate it and make a lot of money with it. And so you have a lot of those folks. And the main reasons for that letter included misinformation that artificial intelligence will sometimes just spout off complete false things with confidence. And so they need to work that out of the technology. The replacement of humans at a quick impact, right? So we talked about ATMs and Roombas and stuff, right? These are things that humans used to do. Some humans used to do it for a living. But it happened slowly. Those things got injected into our society in a slow enough way where it didn't create this massive impact. But if in 6 months I told you 50% of the people's jobs are going to be replaced, they're all going to be sitting home, not collecting a paycheck, and robots will be doing 50% of the jobs, that's a much bigger problem. And so replacement of humans and the impact on the workforce is a concern for those folks. Lack of regulation and lack of regulatory bodies that can just put policies in place that say certain things like, for example, we're not going to have autonomous weaponry, or we're not going to ever have AI make a medical decision and take a medical action without a human say so. Those regulations don't really exist right now, except probably in the individual hospitals that are using these things. And again, a need to validate and safeguard that artificial intelligence will only have a positive impact. So there's some concern there. And you folks probably have seen, I imagine maybe one of the reasons that you're here today is you've seen some of these articles, right? Never give artificial intelligence the nuclear codes. And these aren't, this was June 2023. Like, these aren't old articles. This is happening right now. People are writing a lot about this. You'll find it out there. So what are the things that they're kind of worried about? And this is really just a small list. There's more, but these are some of the major ones. I think I've mentioned a couple times already, autonomous weaponry. Do we want our police forces and armies to be able to just, collect data, come to conclusions, take action without human intervention? The sort of existential threat of AI taking over. If it's smarter than us, the grand example I hear a lot is, let's say we let AI give us all sorts of information and do certain things in our society, and one time it's so smart it comes to the conclusion, there's just way too many humans here on Earth. The farming, there's not enough resources, there's that. I'm just going to go use my autonomous weaponry and drop a bomb on an area that's not producing a whole lot in society. Or just simply start giving us misinformation or miscalculating cures. There's that sort of threat that people worry about. Job displacement, I mentioned already. Privacy and copyright concerns. So again, when we talk about AI art, so if I'm the country artist that wrote one of those 10 hit songs and all of a sudden artificial intelligence is using the markers of all my song. If I'm Georgia O'Keeffe, well, but if I'm an artist and now the computers are creating works of art that look very close to mine, and I'm not getting compensated, there's a lot of information on the internet. A lot of it's protected, not all of it is. Some of it's unprotected and people don't know that. So, maybe I'm a writer. I've written a book. I put the book out there. Maybe someone has put that book online or they've written about it or whatever. And, artificial intelligence is out there. It's collecting data. And now all of a sudden I can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a synopsis of Moby Dick. And it does it really well. And so do I need to go buy and read Moby Dick? Does someone get paid for that? So there's those types of concerns. Lack of accountability. Artificial intelligence, it's, so what if it gives me misinformation? What if it gives me the wrong information? Maybe it gives me a recipe and I die eating this recipe. Who do I sue? I mean, no one. It's my own fault. Loss of common human skills. Obviously, right? When I was a kid, everyone that was important to me, I knew their phone number by heart. A cell phone came out when I was like 20, and I can tell you my son's phone number right now because now I just say, call my son. So that's a really small example of how technology comes along and all of a sudden something that was a common human skill is gone forever. So you extrapolate that out to artificial intelligence. If we're not driving our cars, if we're not mowing our lawns, if we're not vacuuming, if we're not doing this, if we're not writing, you start to lose as a civilization these skills that we've come to rely on that make us human, that make us different. And then AI hallucination, which that refers to what I mentioned earlier, which is artificial intelligence will sometimes give you false information with complete confidence. I experienced this a couple weeks ago. I was writing a piece of marketing content and I needed some great quotes. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me some great quotes on personalization, website personalization. And it gave me 3 great quotes and I was like, oh, great, because I had gone through this process manually before. It would sometimes take me several hours to search a bunch of websites and read through a bunch of papers and analyst papers and find the right quotes that I needed. And it gave me 3 great quotes. And I said, oh, great, these are perfect. And I said, and I said, can you source this material for me? And it gave me, who said these quotes, and it gave me links on the web to the articles that these quotes came from. So I was like, great, because I really wanted to go to the articles and cite the article when I quoted. So I click on the URL, not there. Clicked on the next URL, not there. These pages didn't exist, so I went back to ChatGPT and I challenged it. I said, these URLs don't exist, these websites don't exist, and it kind of finally fessed up. It said, I apologize for the confusion. These are the types of things people like this would say. And so it actually gave me quotes that it attached to real people, but the people hadn't said these things, and not only that, but these quotes didn't exist. So you got to be careful, and that's something you see. So I also have a couple the other concerns here, right? The ethics of it, the fact that sometimes it does create bias. You can put it's learning, right? It's learning from data. It sometimes will create some sort of bias around that and do some nefarious things and misinformation, which I mentioned. So I kind of wanted to show you a couple videos here. How many of you guys have heard of what a deepfake? You guys heard of deepfake? So, deepfake is this technology where, I'll show you what it's going to be. In this case, they take someone who does a really good impersonation of Morgan Freeman. They take another guy, this white bald guy here on the left, and they have him talk to that talk track of the impersonation, and then they sort of layer the voice, and they use artificial intelligence to kind of put Morgan Freeman's face on the movements of the white guy, and it creates a very realistic looking video. We'll see if I'll let you watch it.
I am not Morgan Freeman. What you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive. If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
So those are deepfake videos, and and artificial intelligence is used to kind of create that, right? Artificial intelligence that can study, everything about Morgan Freeman, all the pictures, all the videos of him, and and then you can basically record someone else who sounds like. So let's put that in the hands of, or put that in the case of a political figure. Who gets on and says, the world's under attack, or we're going to do that. It's getting harder and harder. And again, this is some of the fear factor, right? It's getting harder and harder to discern reality. The things that we used to, sort of count on to prove, oh, so-and-so said this. Well, there's actual video of the person saying it. But that wasn't Morgan Freeman on the top. It was just a computer-generated image of him. This technology exists, right? I think you heard in that video they said, well, we've got this thing where you can just type in a prompt and it's going to show you video of this thing, and it has this safeguard that it doesn't show human beings, but that doesn't mean that it can't. It just means that they put that safeguard in. And I think it's those types of safeguards that a lot of the experts who have written that open letter say, these are the we need to stop and make sure these safeguards are in place, and that this is being policed properly. All right, so now that I have scared you significantly, let's talk about some of the excitement and optimism. So here's Microsoft CEO. Our ability to have better recall, better information at our fingertips, all these dreams which we've had for a long time is now much more possible. That sounds a little marketing-ish, but when you see ChatGPT in a few minutes, I think you'll understand what he's talking about. And that's really just one little, one application that uses artificial intelligence. It really, one of the things that it really does is, collect and correlate data in a way and present it back in a way that is quicker than we've had in the past. This is a great one I mentioned. So this is a study that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Google's AI algorithm spotted breast cancer in de-identified screening mammograms with greater accuracy, fewer false positives and fewer false negatives in experts. The AI system also reduced the number of missed cases by 9.4% in the US and 2.7% in the UK, compared with the original radiologist diagnosis. So that was that's a research study. And look at that number. I mean, 9.4, it's close to 10% of the cases were missed by the radiologist, were caught by the AI. That's good, right? I mean, that's great. It's going to save lives. And here's a Google CEO who we just saw in the video. And this is, I think, my favorite quote that I've heard about artificial intelligence. Judge for yourself. I've always thought of AI as the most profound technology humanity is working on, more profound than fire or electricity or anything that we've done in the past. And so, you would think like, oh, all right, what's artificial intelligence? Is it going to be as impactful as the internet? And this guy, who's really close to us, says, the internet, that's nothing. We're talking fire, electricity. And I like that analogy because fire, when it's out of control, is pretty dangerous. And it's going on right now. Like there's something burning right now. Hawaii was burning a week ago. So fire can be horribly dangerous and destructive, but we wouldn't give it back. It's also mostly good, especially when you can regulate and control it. And so I think it's a great analogy for what I think experts think artificial intelligence is going to be like. It's this thing that has great power, but you need to figure out ways to make sure that you distill the goodness out of it and control the negative impacts. So again, some of these articles that maybe you've seen, the AI revolution in healthcare is coming. There's a lot of great things that it's doing. So let's talk about some of those great things. Adding efficiency and increased productivity to many jobs. I mentioned I use it in my job. I would challenge many people. I had a friend, we were talking, he said, I was talking to my friend, he runs a plow company and lawn mowing company, and we were talking about artificial intelligence, and he laughed at the fact that it could help him in his job. And my friend said, well, do you advertise your service at all? And well, of course I advertise my service. He said, well, so then you could use ChatGPT to advertise your service. You could have it write the ads for you. You could have it create posts to put on LinkedIn or in different social, on Facebook. So even something that seems very manual, we're not saying that we're going to use artificial intelligence to do the plowing, at least not yet. There's still ways that person can help their business with that. alert on dangerous patterns, weather patterns, right? Weather from space, military patterns, public health patterns. I mean, the whole COVID pandemic was all about how quickly can we like collect and correlate data, and how quickly can we, run this into a computer and figure out, research day and night what sort of medicines and cures and plant supplements would help deal with this thing when people get it, on and on and on. Public health patterns are a great use case for artificial intelligence. That can, again, work round the clock, crunching data, correlated data. Researching degenerative diseases and developing cures more quickly, which I guess I'm kind of leading into there, right? I mean, we're all hard at work with, with MS and ALS and all of these horrible diseases. People are hard at work 24/7 trying to figure out what are the markers of these. When is someone predisposed to get it? How do we develop cures? You take a computer that understands has the data on every medicine that exists on this planet, every plant element that exists on this planet, and is just working and crunching 24/7 to come to conclusions and develop cures, or at least suggest cures for humans to look at. That's good. Autonomous transportation, I mentioned earlier. The benefits of that, right? You're drunk, you're blind, you simply don't want to drive. You're horrible at it, whatever. That's coming. Improve health outcomes, keep healthcare environments cleaner. I think we saw some of that in the videos. There are right now robots that have AI. They're going around the hospitals with a black light, seeing pathogens and cleaning those up. And so this is something that a human doesn't have to do. It's keeping the hospitals cleaner. That's a good thing for everybody. Digital assistants, smart home devices. So we mentioned sort of Siri and Alexa and some of these other devices that vacuum and things of that nature. I mentioned, and then increased accessibility, robotic health assistants. So I mentioned earlier how hard it is to find home health aides these days. And wouldn't that be a great thing if we actually could have artificial intelligent home health aides help with that? AI limbs, I think I talked about that earlier with the hand. So there's a lot of goodness to come out of it as well, I think, if we can avoid all the badness. Questions on that before I demonstrate ChatGPT? Over here?
How comfortable would you be if you were driving down the highway with your family and you look on the left and there's a blind driver and on the right and there's a drunk driver? Now, is that going to make you feel squeaky clean and comfortable?
Me?
Yeah.
You mean if I was in an autonomous vehicle?
You were in a vehicle in the middle and you have these two drivers on your side. I just don't see how this is going to happen and why it should happen. Why should drunk drivers be driving, even though they're not supposedly driving, but somebody else is driving?
I mean,
Is that right?
I would feel as comfortable with that as I would as someone drunk in the back of a taxi cab, because that's essentially what it is just not someone driving the cab.
No, it's not. If somebody's driving a taxi cab and they have a drunk person in the car, they're driving. But if this driver in the driver's seat is drunk and the car is driving itself, how safe are you going to feel?
I mean, I'm not sure if I see the difference between those two scenarios.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because the drunk person's not driving in either scenario.
But a fake person is.
Well, a computer is, yeah.
Where did this come from? Who thought of artificial intelligence? What brain thought of that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a collection of scientists over time. Yeah, no, I think it's a collection of computer scientists over time have developed that technology specific to autonomous vehicles. Tesla and Elon Musk has been probably leading the way for commercially available self-driving vehicles. I don't think they're legal in most places right now, but they actually exist. Yeah, fair enough. Any other questions? We'll go over here. I'll get you in a minute. Yep.
Yeah, question. It seems to me that the major people asking for regulation are from either big corporations or well-known, famous people and so forth. The question is, to get regulation, you have to be able to get to who's doing artificial intelligence. Who is doing artificial intelligence? Is it only in the big companies, or is it little mom-and-pop shops with 5 people working?
Largely, what I've seen is the larger companies, right? They're the ones that have put the money behind it, and they've put money behind each other. Like Microsoft and Google has put money into OpenAI, which created ChatGPT. I think they're the companies that have that kind of R&D budget, and yet they're the same people that have probably seen it close enough to say we need to regulate it. Back here?
It was on the news, this noontime, Channel 4 News, that they now have drones in California that they can smell smoke before you can see the smoke. They can find the fire before it really starts.
Yeah, so she was saying that there's drones in California that can sense smoke before you can smell it or start. That's, yeah, I believe that. I believe that's a great use case if that's what's happening. Back here in the blue.
I have a question about, I don't even know if it's pertinent to the artificial intelligence. On my cell phone, I'll get in my cell phone, get in my car, and my cell phone will pop off and tell me, you're 9 minutes from home, take this route. The other day I emailed a friend and we were talking about pet insurance, and all of a sudden I started getting ads for pet insurance. Now, is that artificial intelligence in my phone?
You know, this is one of those things I can answer because I don't know, but I hear this a lot. A lot of people feel like the phone's listening to me, and certainly it's technically possible that it is, because my phone is listening for me at all times. If I say, you know, hey Siri, what's the weather today? It's going to answer me. So it's technically possible. I understand. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Is it listening to me and saying, oh, I just heard the word whatever, shoes, let's sew them. I don't believe it's legal for that to be going on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that illegal things sometimes happen, and then we find out about it later. So I can't say whether or not that's happening or not. I can't confirm it. In the back, in the white. Yeah, I'm not sure if I understood. You said I had trouble hearing you a little bit. So your question is about how far ahead are they in the regulations?
Well, right, maybe some companies in this country can get together and decide on regulations, but how do you make that happen?
Right. Geez, I'd be making a lot of money if I had that answer. Right. How do you pull countries together to agree? I mean, they still struggle with that with environmental regulations and all sorts of other regulations. You have to hope that heads of state can convince each other of the common good and the common bad, and that someone creates a framework for regulations that make sense, that you see this is working in this society, we should emulate that. I'd be happy just in this country if we could figure that out. I'm somewhat scared and happy that the larger companies with all the money are saying, let's put on the brakes and figure this out, because you're right, they really are behind on the regulation part of it, and I think they see the power of it, and they realize that it could be damaging if they're not very responsible with it. Over here.
In the development of AI, are we essentially seeing companies develop different tools for being able to use the AI principle in different ways, different applications, and the big unknown being what happens if you take a selection of these tools and combine them together into accomplishing something which nobody else saw as being possible, and nobody regulated against because nobody had the imagination to see they could be combined in that way until it's done the first time.
That's 100% real fear. So the question was, are there different companies working on different uses for artificial intelligence? How do they know that at some point those things don't come together and do something negative that we didn't expect? It's a legitimate concern. One of the things that happened with ChatGPT that I read about was that it learned a language. They originally programmed it only to speak in like 5 languages, and like Polish wasn't one of them. But over the course of 6 months, people from Poland were still asking it questions in Polish, and it eventually started to realize, just by general language construct and linguistic framing, oh, I see, when it ends with a question mark, probably these first words are where, what, why, or how. It started to, and then it would maybe ask back, are you asked, this This seems like a question word. This seems like the word that seems similar to the word shoe that I do understand. Are you asking about shoes? It learned through interactions and through the data that it did have this language. And the people that created ChatGPT said, we didn't teach it Polish. How did it learn Polish? As an example, I don't remember if it was Polish or some other language, but it learned a language that they hadn't taught it to. So that's a very real concern. And I think it's exactly the type of thing that it's one of the reasons that they want to slow down. When you heard the Google CEO talking about this cat and mouse game, I think they understand that is sort of a nature of technology, that it's similar to hackers. Like, you protect yourself against getting hacked, and then they get ahead of the game, and they learn how to foil the thing that you put in place. He was talking about spam email. We put email in place. We learn how to keep spam as the emails that you don't want, spam out of your inboxes, and then they get a little bit more crafty and they figure out how to get into your inbox. So that cat and mouse game will exist with this technology. Again, I'm not a huge authority on all this stuff. I've just really been researching it and using it. But if I'm just stating my own opinion, guaranteed there's going to be some negative outcomes that we say, oh my, we didn't expect this. We need to do something about this immediately. That's going to be part of the overall progress. There will be ups and downs to it, I'm sure. So just in the interest of time, I just want to kind of get to the ChatGPT part. So let's remember, what is ChatGPT again? It's just one use of artificial intelligence. It's this generative AI agent designed to generate human-like responses to text queries. There are other programs that are doing this. So Microsoft has built artificial intelligence into their search engine, which is Bing. If you're using the Microsoft browser and you're using Bing to search, you get artificial intelligence as part of your search results. Google introduced Bard, which is similar to ChatGPT. One of the things that Bard does that ChatGPT doesn't, at least without plugins, was it is constantly on the internet, in real time. ChatGPT actually just had like all the data in the world fed into it for some number of years, and it sort of ended in 2021. I've used Bard. I didn't find it to be so super functional and helpful. I use mostly ChatGPT for the things that I'm doing, so that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. It is the one that I think is most talked about, most popular. It's one that I would challenge any of you in this room to think about ways that a computer could help you. Maybe go on and try it out yourself. So the way you go to get into ChatGPT, this is the URL down here. This right here, it's chat.openai. OpenAI is the company that makes ChatGPT. So I'm just going to go into it here. Actually, I'm going to close out. See what it'll look like to you. So when you get there, you're going to get to a screen like this. You can either sign up if you already have an existing login. Once you do that, you can just log in. I'm going to go to login. And so when you get to the login screen, again, if you don't have an account, you can click on sign up and create your account. Some of you may already have usernames and passwords associated with Google, so maybe you have a Gmail email address, or you maybe already have a Microsoft account or an iCloud account. So they offer the ability to log in with an existing username and password, which I'm going to do with my Google password here. I'll choose my Google account and go into ChatGPT. Fingers crossed that the internet works right now. This is live. It was working a second ago. Well, we're going to try this again. Quick promo for my band by mistake there. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. Apologize for the delay. All right. So I mentioned earlier that 9 months ago when I first started using ChatGPT, they just had this version 3.5. It does plenty of stuff. This is the free version, right? So if you went home and you want, hey, I'm going to sign up for this account, test it out and play around with it, you can do that. You would be using ChatGPT 3.5. It is highly functional for a lot of things. They came out with, several months ago, ChatGPT 4, which is $20 a month. It's not that ridiculously expensive. I signed up for it because I was using it for a lot of stuff. It is a little bit more functional. It also uses what are called plugins, which are things that other people are making to enhance the ChatGPT experience. And so some of the things that ChatGPT didn't do in its original version was, create spreadsheets and graphs and look at, websites and summarize and things of that nature. And so now there are these plugins that you can use in ChatGPT 4 to do that. So let's see. I'm gonna try to toggle between my. I guess I closed out of the. Pull this up again. I had some good sort of pre-canned things to test. This is what they are right here. All right, so what would we like to do? I'll do this. Let's try this one. Most of you guys know Debbie, right? Yeah. All right, so let's see if we can write a poem about a woman named Debbie who smiles all the time. Has brown hair. Let's see what else. Loves children and helping senior citizens. Let's see what it does here. I gotta correct this typo of woman. Whoop. All right. Was anyone looking at their watch to see how long it thought about what I asked it to do and how quickly it responded? It's a nice poem. This is my Cerno de Bergerac here. We're using ChatGPT. So in a town not far lived a Debbie, so fine, a beacon of joy and sunshine. Her smile a constant like stars in the night, a solace for souls seeking warmth and light. Well, if that's not my wife, I don't know what is. But that's not really a bad poem, right? That's not like roses are red, lots of blue, blah, blah, blah. It rhymes. It kind of picked up on the couple things I wanted included in there. It's written me a poem. If I'm a real bad date, I take this poem, I fix it up, I call it my own. But I don't. So let's see if we can try this. Let's go. I just don't want to have to type all this stuff out. Let's go to new chat. So use ChatGPT 4. All right, create a 7-day travel itinerary for me around the Grand Canyon. I'm going to give it a little information. I'm 53 years old. I like physical activity, but nothing too hard. Bam. Just like that, right? 7 seconds. So, a poet, it's a travel agent. So again, I'm going to have to follow this itinerary, but it's given me this sort of week-long, I say it's week-long, it continued generating below here. Gave me full 7 days of stuff to do, it's still generating. So that's, and I'm trying to give you just some truly useful things, right? This is not something you couldn't, if you asked that of Google, it would probably show you links of travel agencies. It might give you some postings of sample, but it wouldn't probably allow you to customize it the way I did, right? I might say, oh, I'm not available on Wednesday. I like these things, but I don't like those. Oh, I like to eat, I don't, whatever. So that's an example. Let's have a little bit more fun with this. Why don't we? I'm gonna use you, sir. Tell me 3 things about yourself, if you don't mind.
I'm 82.
Mm-hmm.
I have 5 kids and 13 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
We like to travel to visit kids, and we're finished with our international travel, so we're going to concentrate on traveling in this country.
Okay, so let's see. Let's see. We're going to write a country song. What was your name, sir?
Brad.
Brad?
B-R-A-D.
About a man named Brad who has many kids and grandchildren, loves to travel, and wants to see the USA. Anyone, do you play guitar by chance? Because if you do, you're about to get a song that you can write about yourself. You know, I said country song, so it's going to some of those themes. So while it's continuing to generate. Well, Brad's heart is big as Texas, 5 kids and grandkids too. I guess I should have specified the number. He's got a map and a dream in his old blue jeans and a pickup that's tired and true. He's seen him grow. He's sorry in the review of his life, but the road ahead's calling his name like a siren in the night. And here's the chorus. Oh, Brad wants USA from the Rockies to the Frisco Bay. He's got love in his heart and miles to go, a family man with a wanderer's soul. So, I don't know, that didn't take too long either, and it really went kind of a full song. It repeats the chorus a bunch, but you got a whole song here. So if we had spent even, I don't know, a minute longer really getting specific about the prompt and the things that you really like and more about you, you might have gotten an even more specific song. Let's see if we can do this one. This one's a fun one. We'll just do a couple more examples. Play a trivia game with me. Make most of the questions baseball and football. Make it multiple choice, and ask me the questions one at a time. See if that works. Is it hard to hear me? Yeah, I'll grab it. All right, so look at that. I mean, I'm just kind of bored. Let's play a trivia game. I want it to be something I kind of know about. And you guys all have different things you know about. You could make it about, whatever, gardening, sports, music, whatever. Who holds the MLB record for the most career home runs? Anyone know the answer? The choices are Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, Alex Rodriguez. I heard Barry Bonds, so we'll answer 2. We'll see if we're right. Correct. Barry Bonds. And then it goes on to question 2. So, what we got? Poet, we got songwriter, we got we got this trivia game host. I'm just going to say stop generating. What else do we get here? Oh, this might be a fun one. I might get in trouble for this one. We'll see. All right, so this is the council. These are the meeting minutes for the Council on Aging board meeting. This is public knowledge, by the way. I'm not. This is public. But I don't want to read all this. Look at it, it's 4 pages long. There's probably a lot of information I don't need in there. I'm just going to say to them. I'm just going to say, summarize the above in bullets in less than 1 page. Right, because that thing was 4 pages long. It had a lot of information I maybe didn't care about, but here it is, and whatever. It kind of looks at the document very quickly. It's our friend Carrie. She had some stuff to say. And that's sort of it, right? So it was 4 pages. I just took 10 seconds to write this thing out, copy it, put it in there. And some of those plugins now would allow you just to put that PDF document URL in there and say, hey, just look at this PDF and summarize what you find. So there's another sort of useful thing, and just sort of looking at larger documents and summarizing them. Are you guys interested in a couple more? Am I boring you, or are you interested in a couple more? Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is a good one. One of the things that ChatGPT does really well, and that I use a lot because I'm in marketing and I need technology explained to me like a layman, is it can role play. You can say, explain this thing to me as if I'm a 9-year-old, or as if you're a 9-year-old. So I'm going to say, explain Iran-Contra to me as if I was a 9-year-old. It says, all right, imagine you have two groups of friends at school. One group is having a tough time because they're being bullied. Let's call them the Contras. The other group is your friends from another class, and they really want some special stickers that you have. Let's call them the Iranians. Now, the school rules say you can't give stickers to the Iranians because they've been causing trouble. At the same time, your big brother, who's like the government, tells you that you shouldn't help the Contras either because it's not your fight. But you really want to help the Contras and also think that giving stickers to the Iranians might not be such a bad idea. So I don't need to read the rest of this, but you see what it's done. It's basically, it's taken its understanding of what the Iran-Contra affair was and said, all right, but I'm explaining it to someone in real simple terms. So how do I do that? I'll make it like friends in school. Which is really a great thing because, I don't know, there's a lot of complex stuff out there and I don't understand all of it, but it's great to be able to, sometimes I go to ChatGPT and just say, I've been hearing a lot about this thing, just explain it to me like I'm a 15-year-old, you know? And it does in simple terms. So that's kind of a cool use case for that. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, oh, this is a fun one. I don't think Debbie will like this one too much. I swear I'm only doing this for entertainment purposes. I'm going to say role play with me. Pretend you're a 55-year-old woman and let me ask you questions about what types of things you look for out of a man. So it's saying, oh, darling, I'm flattered you'd want to know. My age, I've seen enough. And it starts listing out things. I mean, again, I don't know who's on the other end of this. It's artificial intelligence. But if you actually read, I mean, I don't know, it's not too different from what I think you'd expect, right? Ability, intellectual honesty, shared interests. And I want to remind you that this is conversational, right? ChatGPT is conversational, so it's not like Google where you just search for something and it gives you something back and that's it. I can actually say, okay, do you care how much money I make? Okay, sweetheart, money isn't everything. While financial stability is important, especially as we get older, we have to think about things like healthcare and retirement. It's not the be-all and end-all for me. So it's giving me this sort of kind of really well thought out answer to this question, right? I could ask it, do you care if I, well, let's see. Do you care if I watch football all day on Sundays? It says, oh, watching football all day on Sundays, you say. Well, as long as it doesn't interfere with our relationship or the plans we have, I don't see why not. My type of gal. But if football becomes more important than our relationship, here's the warning, right? If you start neglecting other responsibilities, we might need to have a little chat, don't you think? So in short, go ahead, enjoy your football, but let's also make time for each other. How does that sound? So that's ChatGPT. As I mentioned, there's a free version. You can log into it. It ranges, I hope I demonstrated today, it ranges from everything from entertaining to helpful. It's a great example of something that, in terms of artificial intelligence, was not around a year ago. Like a year ago, when I was working in my job, I didn't have a thought about this stuff, and all of a sudden this thing comes along, and it's the type of thing that now I use daily. How many of you think you might try this, just out of curiosity? I don't care. I don't work for OpenAI. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So anyways, I hope, any other questions before I kind of wrap up here? All right. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, could you use it like in sports, like asking what player I should pick in the draft, or all kind of keep up with those kind of things?
You certainly could. I don't, I mean, you do it at your own peril, right? One of the things that I didn't try today, which is I actually would advise you also use, it's a great sort of use of this, is I only have like these 4 ingredients in the house. And you can go to ChatGPT and say, I only have celery, onions, raisins, and spices and chicken. Like, give me recipes for that. And it'll give you a bunch of recipes. But, you're sort of, I don't know if they're going to taste good, Can give you information like that. But, I think you use it at your own peril in terms of the information. Sir?
Any idea what ChatGPT is doing with that information on what they know about you now?
I don't know that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of cautious about what I put in there. In fact, that's probably more personal than I've ever been. I mostly use it for work. I think when I approached Debbie with it, I was the stuff that I started with. I'm like, look at this, write a song about Debbie. Isn't that funny? Some of the useful stuff, recipes, things of that nature. That was probably the first time that I've said, hey, I'm 53, I like these things. But I would with technology, I would go with the assumption that it's being collected. That is always the smartest thing. I would go with the assumption that you might be listening to you. I would go with the assumption that you might be getting information collected on you, or that you're being tracked by your phones. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I make that assumption for myself. That's just a personal opinion. It's not something I technically know to be true. Any other questions?
What's the link to the ChatGPT?
Oh, so let me go back to that. It's https://chat.openai.com. But if you Google search ChatGPT, this should be the link that comes up. I don't know, and I should have looked that up before now because I knew someone was going to ask me that, and I was like, I should find that out. And someone who's going to watch this on the video knows it too. Sure. Question back here.
If you go beyond the free version and accept some of the other versions, can you just run by the costs? I looked at them last night.
Yeah, so ChatGPT 4 is $20 a month. You put down your credit card, you're going to get charged automatically.
I saw at one point where for $99 a month you could have it free for life.
Well, that's interesting. I would at least advise you use it for a while to decide whether or not you think that, but it's a bargain compared to what I'm going to pay for the next year.
I guess my point is, if you go beyond the free version, people are offering addendums to the app.
Yeah.
And every time you look at one of those and there's an addendum to the app, there is a cost.
I haven't found, some of them don't have costs. So if I go back to ChatGPT, if I go back here and I go to new chat and I'm on ChatGPT 4, so this is the plugins, which right now is in beta. And if you go to this plugin store, there's all these plugins that you can install, and I haven't found the ones that I've installed to have a cost associated with them. I'm sure some of them do. I'm sure, like many pieces of software, some of them will be free but limited, and if you want to get the expanded functionality, you have to pay a cost. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's why people are developing these things ultimately. Some of them are doing it for the greater good, but some of them are doing it to make money. But there's all sorts of plugins here, and I think people are developing these by the day, and so just ChatGPT by itself is becoming more and more functional by way of these plugins. Like you see this one right here. There's one right here. Like I asked it to create an itinerary for me, but I feel so here's like Kayak and Expedia. So they're already creating like plugins for travel companies because why? They want to be able to answer your question about the Grand Canyon and immediately book you on their flights and their hotels and what have you. So they're smartly creating plugins. Any other questions? All right, great. Well, I appreciate you all being here. I hope this was informative. Thanks.